Interesting.
Okay, chaps. So I think, look, first of all, guys, as I was saying at the start, it's lovely to have you both. And I know, Luke, we've done kind of an agency air fryer before. Ian, obviously, we've had lots of chats over the years as you supported with us. And I think the first thing I want to do is that what I like about you guys, obviously, you wear both the agency and obviously the tech partner hat, which I think is great for obviously us guys. Before we kind of kick off to one of the questions, in terms of Alvio, what actually is it?
Good question.
Thanks, babe.
So, well, I guess the way I would sort of set the scene for that is that traditionally with brand partnerships, there's a lot of friction involved. So if you imagine that the movement of products, pricing, minimum order quantities, etc. I guess what we'd say is that with Alvio, it's all about removing that friction and enabling brands to actually partner with each other in ways that make it really efficient for them, but also help them to scale. So looking around the room today, and the whole purpose of the Ecom Collab Club is that it brings out lots of reasons why you should collaborate. And I guess the way that I would sum up Alvio is that Alvio is very much where the rubber hits the road in terms of commercialising those partnerships. And I guess Alvio, in sort of one word, I would say it's the how. It's how you do that in order to then create partnerships that can be commercialised but also scaled.
Awesome. And just from a kind of a practical level, like if thinking about brands and that collaboration, what does it actually look like in terms of how that is set up and is done?
It can be very, very quick, very simple. So some brands will come to us with partnerships already pre-formed, and they can be set up within a few minutes. So connecting to Alvio is just a very, very simple click-through sequence of emails, and you can then add Alvio to the back end of your Shopify store, WooCommerce store, and now we're integrating into another platform, Jonas Sports Retail.
Yep.
Once you've done that, connecting to another brand, it's a bit like a social media request.
Okay.
So you've got unique reference numbers between the parties that are actually on the network, and actually making that connection, as I say, is all about permissions. So it's like having a social media request. And again, that particular partnership can be set up within minutes. And a lot of the time is really dependent upon the individuals that are involved. Mm-hmm. Some people are very proactive, some people take a bit longer, but the actual technicalities of it, we've spent many months taking all the difficult stuff away, creating lots of automation so that people can actually do the important thing, which is forming those partnerships and commercialising the business.
Awesome. And I think, Luke, if I wanted to come to you, Phyllis and I said there about the agency side. What's the agency side look like for you guys? And tell us about the agency.
So Inspire Digital was formed by me and Mike, our other founder, somebody very, very clever guy behind Alvio, very good solutions architect. We got together in 2008 and sort of kind of took a wholesale approach to like making sense of the web, right? Big, that's very unspecialised, right? And what we happened to come across Shopify, I think we did like the 124th ever store on Shopify. For a company called North Devon Flag. They don't.
Are they still not going?
No, they're not going anywhere, unfortunately.
Probably your fault.
Yeah, probably our fault. But yeah, so we were just completely bowled over by how good Shopify was at that stage. It just totally made sense to us. It made e-commerce really easy. So we kind of we'll do more of this, and Shopify obviously went stratospheric. And what we found is that we were like unique in the fact that we brought kind of like creative and technical together as a team. So we were one of the first teams on the partner platform. We were one of the first 5 to go into Shopify Plus partner platform, and we've just sort of grown through that period. Now, I don't want to turn this into a big plug about Inspira, but the point here is that in the early days, Shopify was quite like closed down. It was very limited as a platform. So our team is kind of like the DNA of our team is a problem-solving team. We've had to work around lots of technical issues, specifically in the early days to do B2B, right? And so when we got to the stage where we were solving loads of problems for clients, and I can't count the amount of times like we solved a problem for a client and then only to see it turn into an app that became incredibly successful, right? So Alvio's come out of solving a real world problem for a client, And so sitting here today on Alvio's side is great because we've solved that problem and we actually created our own platform and we're now doing an app, which is it's great. It's like
yeah, fantastic. And I suppose the other thing, from HO's point of view, you probably must have looked at that and said, well, actually, look, there's 2 revenue streams here. If one isn't particularly doing as well, then you've got the other one. And I think that's interesting. Like we've seen some agencies come out with apps, tech as well. Was it tricky initially, sort of making that transition to doing both? Is there anything in particular you found difficult being on the tech side as well?
No, I think I think we understand I think it brings a unique understanding to what we need to do as a tech team. I don't find it's not difficult. I think we spread out kind of responsibilities across the team. We've carved out a couple of guys in the team who are very focused on Alvio development. So it's everyone we've carved out responsibilities. So we don't find it difficult.
Yeah.
I would call I'm probably a bit of an expert generalist, which means I'm shit at everything. So I love going across all parties, right? And being able to talk about both. They both feed into each other.
Cool, awesome. So I think the thing with you guys, you've got a product that's built around partnerships, and I think with also obviously what you've done on the Alvio and the agency side of things, what would you say has been the most successful thing that you've done around partnerships as a sales tactic? Because let's face it, we're all here to sell, but what have been the things in partnerships that have been like, right, that's been a driving force for sales through partnerships?
I'm going to contest that question. I don't think partnerships. We don't see partnerships as a sales tactic, right? It's kind of like how do I put this? It's in the DNA of us as a business. I think it's in the DNA of every business. I think if you're not thinking about partnerships and you're not working on that level, it's existentially bad for your business, right? I think in the early days when you're running an agency or you're building a tech team, a tech platform, it's hard, right? It's really hard to get traction, and you need to form good partnerships, strategic partnerships. So I think what Alvio is doing really is it's taking something that's intrinsic to every business and making the actual, the monetizing of that partnership much easier, and just removing all that friction. So I don't think it's a sales tactic more. It's kind of like it's in the DNA of.
It's got to be baked into what you actually.
Yeah.
Well, I can give you an example, actually, a real world example on that one. So, we've found sport is a vertical that has adopted Alvio to a larger degree. And last year we started working with a Premiership football club that was in the Championship, and they were going to Wembley for the playoffs to hopefully go up to the Premiership. Now, within the football world and the football merch world, the traditional model is that you've got your match day kit, which you'll order for the season, it'll be in the warehouse, you sell it, happy days. Anything beyond that, they tend to work with print-on-demand partners and other suppliers. But the world of football is about 10 years behind e-commerce in terms of best practice. So what tends to happen is the football club will have to send their fans out of their Ecom store into a third-party store, which is a really, really bad experience if you're a fan of a football club. And obviously for the football club, they're not transacting that in their store, so they're not seeing the full value. So with this particular club, they're on Shopify. We actually enabled them to pivot their business model with their supplier of their print on demand. And what that meant was that in the lead up to the playoffs, they were able to produce a couple of different versions of their creative. Three versions. One were off to Wembley, fantastic, they sold lots. Yeah. And then they had the two choices: commiserations, we've stayed down, or hooray, happy days, we've gone up to the Premiership. And what they did is they set those two creatives ready in draft form, using Alvio in the store of the football club. I think 8 minutes before the final whistle, when it was absolutely guaranteed that they were going up, they released that to the audience. Nice. They pushed it out on their socials, and within the first hour they sold something like 2,000 coffee mugs with "We're going up." Jeez, nice. So that's an example, a real world practical example of how that works, and it enables these partners to be really, really proactive, really agile in the way they work. And what that's led on for us is, around that time we started working with Art of Football. really cool company. You know, they do artwork, they do clothing, they do lots of leisure stuff, but very socially now, you know, socially relevant within the world of football, a long way from your match strips and that sort of thing. And traditionally with the art of football, again, they cover all the football teams without having to spend a lot of money finding the fan to drive to their own e-commerce store. Clearly what Alvio does is it enables them to place the relevant products within the relevant football club e-com store. And they went live using Alvio with this particular club in the lead up to Christmas last year, and they had their biggest month ever because the product was available directly where the fan was actually shopping. And so fast forward to today, you know, we've just recently excuse me, integrated into the Jonah Sports Retail platform. That integration was completed about 6 weeks ago, and that now puts brands on Alvio into a place where they can access something like 58% of the football clubs in the UK. And the social reach of that is incredible. We were doing the numbers the other day. It's like 80% of social media accounts in the UK are connectable through that method.
Brands are really kind of, you know, getting into TikTok particularly and trying to use that as a method to quickly drive traffic. I guess what you guys have got is something that can kind of help with that as well, isn't it? If you've got multiple brands that you're working with as partners and you've got collaborations that are going on, I suppose what you guys are speeding that process a bit as well, aren't you? And making it more efficient, I guess, like with the football example.
Yes, I think, you know, if you think about it, e-commerce is a very mature market now, right? I think all the big, easy growth is behind us, right? So Alvio, I think, as a tool, it allows brands and retailers and businesses to think laterally, right? So how are we going to access new customers' bases? And it's like, well, actually, you know, all these individual businesses are all kind of like closed user groups. They've got their own, but actually they can start cross-fertilizing and both benefiting. And if you think about Alvio, it's like the channel. I've said this before. It's like the channel tunnel, right? You don't need to change your language. You don't have to have a massive change of like operational procedure to open up that connection between the two of you. And so it's a slightly different lateral thinking process between, all right, rather we'll expand outwards to different brands, audiences. And so yeah, I think it could be really, you know, I mean, Shopify have just got behind this year, right, in collaboration. So I think we were ahead of them.
I mean, that's, you know, there's some really good stuff there, I think, on the plus side of things, and about baking partnerships into what you do, and you know, being a thing you just kind of, you know, that's the way that you view the world.
Yeah.
I suppose one that was interesting is, like, from your angles, is that when's it gone wrong for you guys, or what are the things that you see in partnerships that you don't particularly like at the moment?
I think, I mean, we try not to have any that go wrong, right? But the thing is, I think if you don't have a win-win situation between two brands, you know, a brand and a retailer, or two brands working together, then it's not going to work out, right? There has to be value for both of them. Right? You know, I think if you're like trying to be a drop shipper and trying to scalp, you know, products, and Alvio's not going to have any value to you. But you say you're building an audience around an experience. You're curating products, right? And you've done work to build an audience. Then, as a brand, there's value because they can access that audience, and as the creator of that audience, you can put in products that are relevant to that experience. So it's a win-win situation. And then obviously the other side of it is you both need to be able to fulfil your promises to the end customer, because you end up becoming, you know, in some senses, a dropshipper for each other,
Yeah,
right?
Sure, yeah.
So it's really important that you both share similar goals on customer service. You know, Alvio makes all of the communication between the two of you very simple. I won't go into all the details, but all the numbers are all clear and everything like that. But you know, you need to share business ethics, you know, customers, you know, and just honour each other's customers.
Yeah,
basically.
don't sort of force it, I guess.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's got to work in a natural way that people are going to buy into, as it being a true partnership.
Yeah, it takes. I know for some people it takes time to sink in the opportunity, but you know.
Yeah, I think we're slightly ahead of the curve in some of the way of thinking that that some brands have out there. So within the world of e-commerce, and if you've been an early adopter of e-commerce as a brand, you've set out your stall, you've built your store, you're paying lots of money for driving traffic to your site. A lot of brands are still very centric around that particular business model, and coming from my background, which is launching brands in the old school way of the shoe leather and the pounding the streets, and both metaphorically and physically, with all those kind of pain points and friction points that are there. I look at it and go, well, if you're a brand, you're going to want to replicate. You want to be like a virus, don't you? You want to get out there and you want to grow and you want to expand.
Maybe not COVID, but
so
quite successful, wasn't it?
it was fairly. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's an element of a mind shift as well, in terms of taking that mind shift from, I'm here, I've got to drive the traffic to my website, to then understanding, well, a really efficient and quick way to grow is to take your product and place it where the consumer is actually shopping, where the demographic of the consumer that you're looking to attract is actually shopping already. And I think what we're seeing is that, yes, there are brands that come to us with a pre-formed partnership. They understand the value, the benefits of doing that. But there are some that will come on and they're all excited, and then they'll just kind of lurk. We have something that we call Alvio Engage, which is we can mine a database and we can do a lot of matchmaking. I mean, some people have said you're the Tinder of e-commerce. So we can help and do some matchmaking as well, because we have the data that enables that. And if we get a great brief from a brand that says, okay, this is where we'd like to go, and the consumer that we're looking for, we can present them with lots of opportunities. But sometimes, and this is where it's a further piece of education and there's more that we need to do, sometimes the brand will just sit there and they'll go quiet for maybe a few weeks or a couple of months. We still get some brands that then start to wake up 6 months later and go, oh yeah, we're ready now, we're ready to do this now. So there's a whole spectrum really in terms of how engaged people are. But what we're seeing is that there are more and more brands coming with pre-formed partnerships already in place. And I think that's where some of the message is now cutting through.
And I suppose that's what's probably changed over the past sort of couple of years, is that those partnerships are already in place, rather than it kind of being something where they need, lots and lots of help to even start forming before they then start using you guys to actually sell. I was going to ask you actually, so from your kind of side of things, look, I know with your background, you've worked with some quite big brands, haven't you?
Yeah, well, you can see the grey in my beard and the lines on my face. I'm probably the oldest boy in the room. Yeah, so if you can think back as far as the 90s, floppy hair, loose clothing, joss sticks, or glow sticks.
It's all coming back, mate.
All that.
I see girls now in their 20s who look like 14-year-old girls when I was in the 90s.
Careful.
With like Kickers jumpers on and big like flary jeans. I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
It's all coming back, isn't it?
Yeah, the smiley faces and all that. So, yeah, I mean, look, I'm not a techie, and as I say to people with Alvio, the great thing is I'm surrounded by lots of really, really clever people. My background is brands. I'm probably the least technical person in this room too. But brand partnerships has always been incredibly important. But as I said earlier, in the old days, huge friction points. You're dealing with MOQs, you're dealing with sale or return, you're dealing with moving products around, hoping that they might sell and taking that risk. I've got two examples actually, very quickly. I say back to the 90s. Back, if anybody can remember the days of the original rave scene and warehouse parties and music festivals, I was importing a brand of water from North America, and it was the first bottled water with a sports cap in the UK. And yeah, I had a listing in Boots, I had a listing in Marks and Spencer's and a couple of other sort of established retail groups. But I wanted lots of trial for the brand. I wanted to get it into a youth positioning, and not many people are drinking alcohol in these big rave parties. They all drinking water. So I actually formed a partnership with...
And a few other things.
Yes, I'll skate over that. They were good days. Yeah, so I formed a partnership with a label called World Dance. Anybody here remember those days? I can't see any hands up there. Oh, there's somebody there who's probably the wrong side of 45. Join the club. So we formed a partnership with World Dance, and the way that worked is that with these big events, there's lots of on cost to create the events. So I contributed. I had skin in the game. I contributed to some of the setup costs for these events. You get a couple of thousand people in a warehouse. We were sending the water in by the semi-trailer load. But the differential there was that rather than me selling to them on a cost basis, wholesale, and then putting a retail margin on, we shared the cost and we shared the upside. And I did that very deliberately because I wanted that business, and I wanted that business for a long period of sustainable time. So it gave me lots of trial, meant that the brand was in the hand of the demographic I was looking to attract. But what it also did, it safeguarded me against the undercutting of other brands trying to chip in there, because water is a commodity product, and you know, the risk to me was that they'd go for the cheaper option, and mine wasn't.
Sure.
So that was that one, but I think even more important, or even more significant than that was, I mean, towards the end of the 90s, I was partnering with Red Bull, and I ended up jumping across to Red Bull, and I was running the commercial marketing for Red Bull in the UK and other markets. And at the time, and we're talking late 90s, early 2000s, Red Bull was very much seen as a mixer with alcohol in the student market, which wasn't where we wanted it to be. Yeah, it delivered volume, but it wasn't where we wanted it to be. And the key market for us at the time was forecourts, because of the whole functional aspect of that. But because of the positioning of Red Bull, or the perceived positioning, we couldn't get a listing. So we had a dilemma. We couldn't get the product into the environment that we really wanted it to be in, to drive that next stage of growth. So we ended up forming a partnership with Loughborough University, with the Department of Transport, government department, and also with a series of forecourt operators like BP, Shell, Texaco, etc. And at the time, there was an issue around sleepy drivers, you know, people falling asleep at the wheel. The government had a really successful campaign around drunk drivers, but they still had to fix this particular problem. So we were working with Professor Jim Horn at Loughborough University, who was a renowned sleep expert, and they ran some trials using Red Bull as a stimulant and doing the scientific research that enabled us to create a message. That message was then adopted by the government for their Awake campaign, and we were able to then put a very legitimate and credible message around the brand. We then went to the forecourts. We literally bought up the space in all the forecourts, pump nozzles, posters, end-of-aisle displays, etc., etc. And we went from no distribution in forecourts to distribution across the UK with massive facings on the shelf. We also created the Arrive Alive campaign, which then really resonated, and it was picked up by national media. And within 12 months, Red Bull was selling the equivalent in value terms to Coca-Cola in the forecourt sector.
Yes.
And 6 months after that, we're actually outselling Coca-Cola in units, in single can units. So, I mean, I would say from a partnership perspective, that really worked. But you can just imagine, can't you, through the line, how many friction points there were in terms of getting the product into an environment where it would sell. And teams of people, a lot of friction points. Fast forward to today, obviously we have the technology that takes a lot of those friction points away. And I guess if we make that relevant to Alvio, it's placing the product in jeopardy of being sold, you know, in a location where that consumer is coming to purchase that product.
I mean, listening to you both, and thanks for sharing it, it's a brilliant story, and I think from what you both said, it seems like you're very clear on, with partnerships, it's got to be a situation where you're both going to have a win as the outcome. And I feel like sometimes that when partnerships gets talked about, in the context of obviously agencies and tech, but also more in terms of what I'm talking about, there sometimes isn't that mentality. And what I was kind of wondering is, you know, when obviously businesses are coming to you, do they come to you with that mentality? And are they kind of aware already how partnerships is going to drive their sales for them?
Can I take one?
Yeah, sure. I think it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier on. There's a whole spectrum of understanding around that. So I think that there are some businesses that come and they see tech as being the magic bullet, that you know, the silver bullet that's going to just make it all happen for them. I think the message that I would put across, and again, you know, putting my brand hat and looking through the spectrum of a brand's eyes, I would always say, you know, marketing 101, business development 101 still absolutely has to be at the core of this. So think of, you know, again, I just talked about the forecourt environment where you've got physical places the product is being sold. The message I would always, and I do say to brands who ask, you know, what do we do next? the message I give them is, well, look, again, think of this in terms of any partnership or you placing your product in a selling location. If you were putting it into a boot store, you would be putting signage, you would be making sure that the facings are correct, you'd be making sure that there is communication going out to the audience that comes into Boots to tell them about your product. So a true partnership is not a drop shipping model. A drop shipping model is where you get an anonymous supplier from China and you ship loads of tat. Okay, sorry to anybody that might be in that game. But what we're talking about here is...
You'll fight with them later.
Yeah, is true partnerships. And so therefore, what we say to the brands is, you should be engaging with that partner and finding where the sweet spots are that you can actually then collaborate. And this doesn't have to be massively difficult, but just coming to the sort of practicalities of this, Alvio, the dashboard, enables the brand to set their trade price, the retailer sets the retail price, but the brand has control over their pricing on a per SKU basis or across all of the different SKUs that they're supplying to the retailer. So my message is, engage with that partner. Make sure that for the launch period you've got the product maybe on the landing page, or they're using an upsell tool within the sales funnel. Make sure that the message goes out to the audience that this new product is now available. It's all about marketing and business development 101. It's all about the engagement. Alvio takes care of the difficult stuff, which actually, hopefully, what it does, it gives more time for the two partners to engage around how do we work together to actually make this thing really work and fly.
Definitely. And I think, again, it's interesting, just thinking back to kind of the things you say, and I think sometimes, particularly in kind of the agency and tech relationships, this can sometimes be a sort of set it and forget it sort of mentality. And I suppose in the early days of brand collaborations and partnerships, it was the same. But obviously what you're saying is that in all forms of partnerships, you need to then, going back to the basics of sort of, 4 Ps or 7 Ps, and we'll probably study at some point, thinking about that kind of context, you've got to have all those elements with it, as well as it just being the fact, look, X brand is now selling Y brand's product.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of sticks to me. And I think the question I wanted to ask you guys is, obviously, there's plenty of agency owners in the room, and obviously, Luke, this is something very close to you as well. Ultimately, I think at the moment, we've all found the past 12 months quite difficult. It's a lot more competitive, and I think we're all looking for ways that we can add more value to those individual clients. With you guys as Alvio, how can the agencies in the room use you guys to help drive their own agency revenue?
Well, it starts very simply at the point that if you bring two people together in a partnership as an agency, you can get lifetime value out of the value that creates. So at a very, let's put it at a very direct level, you can make 10% out of that partnership at the moment it starts producing value. But for from an agency point of view, who's gonna be upset about the fact that, because Alvio provides you with a bunch of ideas to add value to those clients. It provides ideas of who they can partner with, how they can expand their audience. It's a win-win for an agency. You go to your client with new ideas and say, well, how about this partnership concept, right? We can set you up in 24 hours. You can go and partner with these guys and they can partner with you, and you can access each other's audience, and everyone's getting a revenue uplift. That's make client happy, make some money. They're the two great things to have for an agency. If we think back to Inspire Digital, Alvio has become a little bit of a Swiss Army knife for us. It solves a couple of things when you're doing multi-site internally for companies. But it's it's an app that, because I was at the e-commerce Collab club. Where is the love, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And where is the love?
Where is the love? And I was sitting lurking in the audience and with all these great people talking, and I was thinking, Christ, Alvio, it actually sits at the beating heart of this question, right? Mm-hmm. What came across there was, that everyone needs to work together to provide value for their end customer, right? And so that was a degree of sharing, openness, and everything like that. And Alvio, actually, for that to work, is exactly what is baked into it, right? And so I think Alvio has a lot of potential to kind of open that up for agencies and tech partners. as we add people to the network and as we add, we're constantly out there bringing people together. So it's going to raise those opportunities up for both agencies and tech partners. So I think, how to put it, we're the heart and the head, right? The heart is the why that you talked about, which is why do we need to collaborate, and Alf is also the head, like, here's how you do it.
Look, I think also just to add to that, I fully understand that we have, there's a message there, there's a piece of education there for brands to understand, and agencies are a really key partner for us going forward. So, our focus over the last few months has been new integrations, it's been building that really, really solid base, very much by invitation. We haven't released, although Alvio's approved in the Shopify App Store, we've kind of hidden it, and we've made it very much by invitation so far, because the last thing we wanted was just lots and lots and lots of traffic and not much happening. So we've been very careful to make sure that there's a really solid base that we're starting from, and so as we move into 2024, there's a really important next step for us, which is engaging with agencies, working with agencies, supporting agencies around what we're doing with Alvio. Agencies that do events, for example, again, we want to get more involved in the sort of heart of the community and how we then help that. It's not just a case of just going, hey, take our product and hope that it works. I think we can bring some value to those conversations around the whole theme of partnerships and collaboration. We took the Shopify did their they published their trends report earlier this year. 5 very, very key messages in that, but the one that was actually first and foremost was the future is about collaboration, it's about partnerships. And so we took that report, we then published a series of articles around that report going into much, much greater detail. So we have a lot of resource there, and I think we've also got a lot of experience that we can bring to the party. So I think just adding to Luke's point, we see agencies as being a really important partner for us as we take the next step with Alvio, which is about taking it to the next level of scale and then working with people to take the product out to the brands. And I guess the ultimate ambition is that if agencies are recommending a series of apps to their clients that are the must-have apps to have within their business, we'd love Alvio to be one of those. One of maybe the 6 core apps that any e-commerce brand should have within their store.
We're betting on partnerships being, like, we talked about tactics, right? We're betting on partnerships being that part of the business that's as important as, like, having good SEO, right? It's just like something you do on a routine, weekly, monthly basis, and Alvio's there to kind of make that the rules, the tyres of the road just run really smoothly.
Got it.
Yeah.
And I think that the other thing on the other side of the coin is, from obviously the other side with tech brands, and obviously there's lots of people from apps and tech solutions in here today. What's Alvio looking for from those guys? Like, what are you looking for from a partnership and relationship wise there?
So, we're building a platform here, right? And we want to provide value to all of the people on that platform. So as a tech company, if you're going to bring some value to the network, fantastic. We want to talk to you, right? And we've already
there's people in the room here today. So Reed from Ship Theory's here, I believe. Got the guys from Penny Black. Prove Anything. I don't know if they're here today. The guys from Nibble. So we've already started to partner with some tech companies who are bringing value to the network. I had a call last night from the head of digital from Transformulas, which is a beauty brand that's on the Alvio network. We introduced him to Nibble a few weeks ago. He took Nibble on board for his Black Friday Cyber Monday campaign. He phoned me last night to say it's gone absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much for the introduction. So, a big up for the guys from Nibble, because, they've already come in and activated with a brand on the Alvio network. That will become a case study for us, and we will continue to push that out. I mentioned McDara from Spree, who's here today. We've got a couple of the brands on the Alvio network that are looking at that right now, and also with Penny Black. Again, I have some brands that will be interested in having the whole unboxing experience. So I think collectively, we're all stronger as a as some of our parts than we are individually. And we're creating a network, and it's all about bringing value to that network.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Guys, please give it for Ian and Luke from Alvio. Cheers.
That's something nice. 2 questions. How often do you update your notepad? And the Jonas Sports thing, so I just googled it and stuff, it does look massive, but in a nutshell, I've got clients, and I'm sure everyone else has, that are like loosely related to sports. What are, in an elevator pitch, the opportunities for store owners and brand owners there?
Yeah, so the notepad is, I've got a terrible memory and I like to make notes while I'm talking. So yeah, quite frequently. Well, the Jonas Sports one is an interesting one. Football in particular has always been it's a big draw card, isn't it? There's big audiences, lots of engagement. People see there's lots of money to be made. Football's a difficult one to penetrate, and very often, if you're a brand, generally speaking, if you're a brand that wants to engage with a football club, there's gate fees and lots of costs before you even sit down and talk about a supply of a product or a launch of a product. The Jonas platform is an interesting integration because what we're doing there is we've actually become a tech partner with Jonas, and the industry within sports in general, but football in particular, when it comes to e-commerce, is still sort of very number of years out of date. The people who run the retail stores within football clubs tend to be, the music stopped playing, somebody's moved on, and they get shuffled to the next level up, and suddenly somebody who'd been working in the fan store, at the stadium, is now running the e-commerce store. So there's a lot of learning to be done there around best practice. A lot of football clubs tend to get burnt at the end of the season as well, left over with lots and lots of stock that they've then got to clear out. So there's a whole pivot there, and we're having this conversation around the ability for a football club to embrace the idea of broadening the mix of products that they're selling. It's a great revenue raiser for them, hugely engaged audience, but actually do so without risk. So in terms of opportunity for brands, and this is very much brands that are in within the Shopify ecosystem, we're taking down some of those friction points, taking down some of those barriers, and enabling these clubs to then have a much more open mind around bringing on new products. And they could be products that are seasonal they could be for Father's Day, Mother's Day, they could be for Christmas, summer, etc. So there's an element of, yes, there's lots and lots of scale there. I talked about the numbers earlier on in terms of social media reach and actual physical numbers of locations. But also there is a changing scene where there's a lot more openness to new ideas. And I think that's where the opportunity lies, because we're taking down some of those barriers of entry.
Cool, thank you. Any more questions? Can you shout, Neil?
No, I can't. I've got a sore throat. I'll do it anyway. I have my own brand selling scarves. I'm just interested. I would like how do you price? What's the pricing model?
Yeah, so in terms of the pricing model, is that question around the Alvio pricing model, or how a brand prices into a retailer?
The Alvio pricing model. Yeah. I can figure out how I price into a retailer, but then what does it cost me after that?
Yeah, so generally speaking, well, very, very specifically, we're a SaaS model, so it's a mixture of a monthly subscription and also percentage of the actual trade turnover, not the retail turnover. So it's a sliding scale. Our percentage starts at 5.5% and scales downwards as you go up the scale. And it's $39 US a month as a brand on a monthly subscription, and that gives you, within that package, up to 10 connections, and then it scales up after that. What we're seeing in terms of the actual margin between the supplier and the retailer is, generally speaking, in a standard retail environment, a retailer is looking to take 35-40%. What we're seeing within the Alvio model is that the retailer takes around 20%, 15 to 20%, basically because they're not tying money up in stock and they're not physically handling any products, so their costs are much, much lower.
Cool. Thank you.
Alrighty. Okay then, guys. Well, look, thank you so much for joining us today, guys. Massive round of applause, rather, to Luke and Ian from Alvio. Cheers.
Thank you.